So now let us allow God to turn our hearts to the story of the birth of Jesus. This nativity is like you have never seen it before. We're going to need some transitional music. Well, that music may be beautiful to our ears, but the music of the time when Jesus was born was not music that made the soul swell. Jesus was born into an age of darkness and gloom. It was bad and it was sad. He was born in the Roman Empire, which was ruled by Emperor Augustus, who had unchecked power and was venerated as a god. He was a tyrant. He took other countries by hostile and corrupt ways, and the population of his empire was 90% non-citizen slaves and inhabitants of other countries. And he made each of them pay hefty taxes to support his Rome's splendor. He made them build palatial homes and mansions and ornate temples and work for aristocrats who controlled vast estates and feasted on greed. Yes, there was a great gap between the rich and the poor. Does that sound familiar? Levies were placed on each household, and land was taxed, as well as any imports that came from other countries. The Roman Empire drained poor peasants and farmers of everything they had. They struggled. Life was difficult and painful. They were in despair. There seemed to be no hope at all. Farmers struggled to farm in the arid country, and they struggled with the desert rocky soil, not being able to produce much. And Israel, she also was fracturing, for there were internal fights and fights between the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the Essenes, and the Zealots. Yes, it was a time of a faith crisis when Jesus was born. Despair, gloom, emptiness. Poets often call it dark. The darkness was so abundant. And the people yearned for a light to see through the darkness. And besides that, the Israelites kept saying, "Where is God? Why isn't God speaking to us?" You see, it had been almost 5 centuries since they last heard from God through a prophet. That prophet, the last one they heard from, was Malachi. You know it as the last book in the Old Testament. They were lost and lonely. They yearned to be delivered. And they cried out, "Come! Come, Jesus, come! Come, thou long-expected Jesus." Let us sing together, "Come, thou long-expected Jesus," while we remain seated. Verse 1.
Free.
to deliver. And now we need some transitional music. Well, we know God to be a fair and just God, and surely that was the reason that God gave to Mary and Joseph a conversation with an angel. And the conversations that they had dramatically changed their lives. You know, Mary and Joseph were engaged to each other, but they weren't yet formally married when they learned that they were to have God's only son. What a shock! A babe before a honeymoon? Who would ever think of that? And when Mary was great with child, they now had to make a 100-mile trip from Nazareth to Bethlehem to be registered by the Roman Empire. Poor Mary. Swollen feet, a stretched, tight, itching belly, and worrying about how they would fare on this trip. It was a rough trip. But nevertheless, they persevered. Did I say it was a rough trip? It was a rough trip. And by the time they reached Bethlehem, they were looking as old as Moses. You know, that kind of travel will do it to you. Well, poor Joseph, a poor carpenter, he couldn't afford a room in an inn, but he was filled with hope. And so he knocked on the door regardless of his empty pockets. And there, an innkeeper opened the door, coming to them. Now, some of you may think that we should have a male innkeeper because, after all, that's what tradition has often done. But in this one, we have a woman because, after all, Jesus was a progressive, and he would really like it. So the innkeeper said to them, there's no vacancies whatever. But the innkeeper, especially being a woman, was quite sympathetic toward them, and she could see that a birth was about to happen. Yes, the bun in the oven was done. So the innkeeper led them to the stable, and among the critters and the creatures, where Jesus would be born. Now, before she could get a pot of water boiled and find rags, or even call on a midwife, she had to step in and help with the birth. It was a fast delivery. Oh my. Now, when that baby was born, his mother and father, Mary and Joseph, looked into his eyes, and they could see that he indeed is the light of the world. Yes, Jesus, the light of the world, the light that the world yearned to see, to lead them out of darkness. This is the Holy One of God, who was promised for so long and now has come. Let us sing together, Gentle Mary, Lay Her Child, 146, verse 1 and 2. Along with the innkeeper. Out in the fields, there were some stinky, tired shepherds watching their flock. You know, the shepherds weren't marginalized just because they were shepherds. It's because no one could stop holding their nose while they were around. Well, naturally, it was night and it was time to bed down. And they made sure, of course, that one would stay awake, keeping watch so that no critter could take one of their little lambs. And then all of a sudden, a light, brighter than LED headlights on a car. And then a swishing sound came, louder than birds in flight. An angel came to them. And they were shocked. They were terrified. They shook in their sandals. They dropped their crooks. And the angel said to them,
"Hey, you! Why did God give me the stinky job?" God always equips us, and I have heavenly sense.
Then she said to them, "Hey, don't be afraid. I'm nothing to be afraid of. Besides that, I've got some good news, joyful news. It's not just for you, it's for everyone. A Savior's been born. He's from the city of David. And this is it. He is the Messiah. Yes, finally, the Messiah has come. So don't bed down or rest on your laurels. He's something you've got to see. Now here's some clues. Wrapped in some cloths and in a manger. I know it's not much to go on, but it's all I got." You know, God likes these kinds of things to be mysterious and secretive. And then, all of a sudden, as quick as a wink, oh, holy cow, the whole sky lit up, more spectacular than a 4th of July fireworks display. After all, this was God's big night, bigger than a Macy's Day Parade, bigger than a Super Bowl championship, for God had called on God's senior executives of the Department of Angels to showcase the newborn Son.
Hallelujah! 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 Hallelujah!
Well, they gave it their best shot, didn't they? And they said to the shepherds and to all the world, peace on earth to all. And then the shepherds picked up their crooks and started to make their way towards the stable. However, one of the shepherds picked up her rake instead. Because she had the foresight as a shepherdess, a woman, to know that wherever Jesus is in the church rakes them in. Now let us sing together verses 1 and 2 of Angels We Have Heard on High, number 113. Tells us that there were 3 wise men, but since Jesus was a progressive, we know that he would have preferred at least one to be a wise woman. And he had many to choose from, don't you think? Well, besides, they were going to be traveling a long distance, and if they got lost, a woman was needed for asking for directions. Now, they stopped in to talk to Herod, old sly Herod, and he couldn't be trusted. They had seen Jesus' star in the sky, and they were looking for the Messiah. And after having an inside conversation with Herod, and knowing that he wasn't truthful, they left. With his blessings, they say. But truly we knew that he was going to do the King of Kings in. And so, taking gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, they made their way to the stable following a spectacular star. It was God's GPS. And they made their way to the stable bearing their gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And when they got there, they bowed down before the King of Kings and gave them their gifts, gave him their gifts. They gave their gifts. You don't get to take those gifts home. Now let us sing together, We Three Kings of Orient are, 151, verse 1 and 4. In his living, we see his dying. In his loving, we see his sacrifice. In his life, we see that he gave all. He truly came to be the light of the world and to create followers who would join him in transforming the world from gloom and doom to joy and happiness and justice and mercy and love. He came to bring divine gifts and to remind everyone that God is faithful and God will never let anything that God has created go to waste. For God is already working on a new heaven and new earth in Jesus Christ. So here we are then at the stable, and Christ's light is beaming brightly, and he gives his light to everyone. He says to those who follow him, "Do not let your light be hidden under a bushel, but let it be seen so that all may see me in you. Let your light so shine. And remember, my light, your light, is the light that darkness can never overcome." So we are to bear God's light in Jesus Christ into the world, seeing to it that all have a life of well-being.